why do powerlifters train at a percentage level, lower percentage level, like 70, 80%, and only hit 100% a few times of the year? Take what is useful from an expert, disregard what is not beneficial for you, and then add your own sauce to it.
And I found that I was my strongest at 38, and I started lifting at 11 years old.
I got my boy on. There is a small few people I will talk to in the health and fitness world about training that fully understand it. They take what they learned in books. They took what learned in the experience of going through. They accomplished something big. That's a big part of it. I don't care if you lift. If you never accomplish something with it, do you really know it? And you've done all of this, and you've even taken it and created your own from it, which again, it goes back to that whole Bruce Lee mentality.
Sure.
Take what is useful from an expert, disregard what is not beneficial for you, and then add your own sauce to it in a sense.
Sure.
And you have done this over and over and over again. World record holder records and so on and so forth. And again, we graduated high school at the, I think the exact same weight.
Yeah, 250.
Oh, you're 250? You're a small little guy. I was 252.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah. He's not a little guy. This guy's a monster. He's thick. He's dense. What I love about you too is as a power lifter, a bred power lifter, you have such a beautiful physique relative to the mindset of what most people think power lifters look like.
Sure.
You got small little joints and knees, and your legs it's awesome. It's awesome. So from me to you, true respect. You're one of my favorites. And you texted me the other day. I know you've been busy, and we're going to see at the end of this. I want to see this house that you created.
Sure.
But I want to hit you here, Matt. I want to hit you here with 5 questions today, if I can.
Deal. And I got questions for you too.
Holy sheesh, yeah. I am straight. The one time with Ed Cohen was only because I was needed rent paid, and I'm just kidding. Do you want to go first or me first?
You go first, brother.
Okay. All right. We're going to leave all Jeff's questions for you out. Those we discussed at a different time. All right. Number 1. Why do powerlifters understand, or if it is right or wrong, why do powerlifters train at a percentage level, how to word this correctly, at a lower percentage level, like 70, 80%, and only hit 100% a few times of the year, where the mentality of a bodybuilder is every workout you go ballistic and train until you're fatigued and superset and all this?
Sure.
Why is that? Can you explain? Is that right? Are powerlifters wrong? Are bodybuilders right? Or what is the concept?
Well, I think the problem with what we do is it's so much more neurologically taxing because we have taken a handful of small lifts and really pushed them to the human limits of potential. And to do that, when you do that, you only can really sustain that about once every 6 months. And that's if you're lucky and if you're young. So I have found that I truly don't max to the point of insanity probably more than once a year anymore at over 40 years old. And what I find is that powerlifters, because they have attacked into that super far beyond what the average person can even control or turn on and activate muscle tissue wise, that it's so neurologically taxing to train that way or to even do those things that it's not really conducive for long-term performance. And what you have to ask yourself, that I think bodybuilders don't ask themselves sometimes, is, are you testing or building when you train? And if you're building, then maxing may not be the right thing to do that day. Whereas if you're building new strengths, then your programming is more long-term thought out, and you are particularly putting those maximal effort lifts at timed positions. Because the problem is with powerlifting is, I've benched 611 pounds in competition after squatting an all-time world record, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm capable of that day in and day out.
So I hopefully everybody out there understands that, because my style of power bodybuilding is more of the concept of starting the workouts as a power lifter. So be patient, lift heavy, yes, but not every just because you can do a PR, the weights feel light, doesn't mean you should do a PR.
Right.
And then continue forward on the workouts that I set up for you. So I wanted you to get that out there. And this kind of leads me to the next question that I'm an expert at, because I've been here for 40 years and in the magazines and around the greatest in the world for more than half my life, is most of my life.
Yeah.
So I missed about 17 years there not being around the best in the world, and then the rest of my life there. Why is a bodybuilder's career or lifestyle so much shorter than a powerlifter's career?
Well,
first of all, I'm sorry, you may not have noticed that because you're in the powerlifting world and you keep doing it and keep strong and keep healthy, and you're 40 and a tank still. But since I first got to California as a 20-year-old kid, man, I would see these guys come in at 20 years old, 19, 20, 21, and by 24, they were burnt out and done.
Yeah.
Some of the greats were done by 28.
Yeah.
The majority of the greats were done by 30.
Yeah.
And powerlifters, I mean, I know these 70-year-old people that are still competing and doing it.
Yeah.
So
what's
this go back to question number one?
I think no. I think it has a different spin. I think that most powerlifters, and I'm going to be one of those guys that's going to tell you this from the heart. I think almost every powerlifter starts to get into weight training because they see bodybuilding first. Maybe more our generations, but because there weren't the internet, there wasn't Instagram. So I didn't know about Bill Kazmaier until as a kid, I thought I saw Arnold Schwarzenegger in a movie, or I saw Sylvester Stallone, guys you see all the time at Gold's. And I think initially what gets people into working out is aesthetics. And what I figured out is that my waist, even at 16, was already thick and very conducive to squatting and deadlifting massive weights. I feel that some of that particular scenario starts from the fact that most powerlifters are not as genetically gifted aesthetically as bodybuilders from the rip, right? Like,
okay,
I want to talk with Flex Wheeler. He said he trained his arms really hard for a whole summer, and it put 3 inches on his arms in one summer. Now, the average bodybuilder is going to have to bust his ass for years and years and years to get good. And I remember one of the big pivotal points in my career was I was 19 years old going on 20, and I squatted 700 pounds. And Ed Cohen saw me at that meet doing that because it was very close to Chicago. And Ed Cohen came up to me and goes, if you can hold on for another 10 years, you're going to be a world record squatter, or at very minimum, way over 800 pounds. This is 1999, where an 800-pound squat was nearly unheard of.
Yeah.
Especially at a young age. And so the first thing most people would think is, well, shit, if I got to last 10 more years, then I don't want to do this anymore. That's not, I want to do it next week. And for me, and just the same as you, is our passion lies in the travel down the trail, not the end of the trail. I'm not looking at the goal. I want to be able to train hard forever. And how do I do that?
Would that be, I don't care about the result. I care about what I'm becoming.
Yes.
There's two big, huge differences. Most people go, I'm doing this so I can get this. Well, what if it doesn't come quick? Where you were doing this to become something more.
Right. I wanted to learn the process. And it all started because at 19, 20, I knew that I wanted to be a strength coach. I didn't know if I wanted to do it at, say, a pro NFL level or a college level, but I knew
I would love to have you as a strength coach. Oh.
And here's the thing, though, is that I never wanted to tell somebody to do something that I wasn't willing to do 100% myself. That's the drive for me to be world record holder. That's the drive for me to go into the gym every day. It's when I have these firemen and these guys, these special ops guys that I take care of, I do not want them to look at me as I do this and this, right?
We always do this. We always mimic each other without talking, because the Titan crew does the plans maybe a year after me. I test it. I do it. And then I say, okay, now you guys do it. And it's the same principle as you have. Yeah. You do it. you test it, you're theoretic on it. You dissect it, and then you come back and go, here we go. This is what you guys are going to do.
And I will never have somebody do something that I haven't tried and tested for many, many months, if not years. And every freaking manual that I put out on my website, I have bled to learn that information. And even a couple of those mesocycles are based off of your training, and it's got your name on it. It says Michael Hearn training loading, and it's the power building cycle where you go ultra heavy to start like a powerlifter, and then you go into your bodybuilding stuff at the end. And that's shit that I learned from you. And the thing of it is I like to use all sorts of loading parameters, because what I ended up finding, like you did, is the fact that the body adjusts to loading very, very quickly, especially as you get 20, 30, 40 years in your training cycle. And you have to learn how to constantly keep showing the body a new stimulus. And people can argue about that shit all they want, but at the end of the day, it comes back to neurological burnout. It comes back to your question: why do bodybuilders burn out faster than powerlifters? And I truly believe it's because bodybuilders use the same movements too damn much all the time, and their central nervous system's fried. Whereas I have adjusted, changed, and trained. I might train the same muscle groups constantly every 72 hours, but that stimulus looks different. And much of that is due to neurological adaptation and burnout.
I love that. I'm going to leave that there. Everybody that's watching this, right there, I have a link up. This is where you can reach Matt, okay? His website right there. Okay, we're going to go to the third question here.
Sure.
I kind of know when I was the strongest I've ever been in my life. And it incorporated, I got to have time to be in a surplus of calories, do programs that just continuously pounded the heavier weights. But what do you think an average or that pinnacle strength for a person is? What age group for a man would take, for example? Where do they normally peak?
I think there's a lot of factors involved, because I think for us, the reason that our timeline for what you're asking is going to be different than most people is because we never had injuries. So with that being said, if you can stay away from injuries and you can train smart and you can stay away from psychological burnout, and in all honesty, most importantly, stay away from external stressors, I feel that your time in which you could be your strongest is probably in the range between 28 to 44 if everything is perfect. And that's a large range. But you and I both started working out around 11, 12 years old, and we never burned out. And how did we do that? The reason is because we were driven in here to not only want to be good, but to be good for the right reasons. And anything that's external, I want to win a title, I want to do this, that starts to cause a shorter timeline with trying to find shortcuts, and there are no shortcuts. So I feel if you stay away from those pitfalls, your branch or your timeline of which you can be strong starts to get bigger and bigger. And I found that I was my strongest at 38, and I started lifting at 11 years old. So I didn't become my absolute strongest until I put 25 years of grinding in.
And I'm close to that. I was around mid-30s, a little younger than mid-30s, which is funny because it was ridiculous. At that point, I honestly thought I could wrestle a bear. Yeah. And I was doing the show Battle Dome, and after Battle Dome, I was just like, I'm ready to do whatever. And that was my strength.
Remember this. You know, we were friends. Me and you were friends in the early mid 2000s, and I remember that time period because I was just starting to crack open the walnut. You know, I was just getting to the point where I
came into Gold's. You came in because when I first met you, I met you at Gold's. You were with somebody. Who was that?
I was with Chris Bell.
Jeez Louise! Wow, you were with Chris. I love that.
I walked into Chris Bell, and Chris Bell goes, "Matt, I know you're super strong because I had just won a collegiate national title. I had just broke all the American records, drug free." And Chris Bell goes, "Oh, hey, I'm so glad you're here." He didn't even know I was going to be there. And I just showed up because I was on vacation and I always wanted to lift at Gold's Gym. And then he had introduced me to you, and we squatted together. And I was like, "Oh, this is my boy." I mean, we were your form was the same.
Wow. It was love together after squats.
Oh, I mean, if you don't like somebody after a squat session, they'll never be your friend. It doesn't matter.
Mostly because of the way we did it. It was fun.